Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, this is MLS Ireland Does Predictions, and we're into our final week of the regular season, so stay tuned, I suppose. Perfect, thank you very much. Yes, this is MLS Ireland, and my name is Sean, and you're watching my prediction show. Yes, this is the final week. I think there's only one or two teams that are actually not playing this week, but the rest of them are, which is quite a lot of games, so I may as well, crack on. If you're new to this, hit that subscribe button. It mean a lot to me. I have a wee Patreon thing down below. It doesn't really matter, but follow me on Twitch and all that fun social media stuff, apart from TikTok. I don't think I'm on that, nor Facebook. Thank Christ. But anyway, yes, it is the final week, which is a bit sad, but coming into it's been pretty hard to predict a lot of games, because I think New England's probably the only team really. They've only lost 4. I think Nashville's lost 4 as well, but they've drew 17. But like New England together 7-4, like they've actually have a better record than their winning games. Like for the rest of the teams, I think they've only. I think not really that many have actually won half their games, which isn't great. But it is it's a very hard league to predict. As you can probably tell that I got quite a few wrong, but I got a lot right actually. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with I done right. So again, a lot of games, so we might as well crack on with the first game, which is Montreal against Little Orlando. Montreal now. I've decided to do. Also decided to put a wee. You'll see a table probably at the end of the thing to show you where and who makes it in and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put that in. Obviously, it's not going to be live here, so I can't really point out where. But anyway, so Montreal against Orlando. Montreal at home are pretty impressive. They've won more than half their games at home, which is it's not too bad, to be fair, in MLS. They won their out of the last 4, they've won 2. Lost 1 and drew 1, which isn't too bad. In their last 6, they've only won the 2. That was against Houston and Atlanta. So they're coming up against our Orlando team, who probably haven't really won a game since the 16th of October, which isn't really that far ago. That was against Cincinnati, and before that was DC United. Their last away game was against Columbus, and that was a 3-2. So they're not really coming into a greater form on the road. Montreal, who I actually do think are surprisingly good, better than we suspected at home. So I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win, just for the fact is they're at home, and I think they're capable of getting into the playoff stages. But we'll see at the end to see what the crack is. So yeah, 2-1 on that one. The next one is Columbus Crew against Chicago Fire. Now, this was an interesting one. Columbus Crew now are starting to pick up. They've actually won a lot of games now at home, more than half, which is pretty impressive, where Chicago Fire, I think, have won 2. So that's not great. And they've won not so long ago away from home, and that was probably one of their 2, and that was against Cincinnati. So it's not really a great indication. Columbus Crew now are starting to come up the league. Let's see. The last game was against DC United, and that was a 3-1, and then they beat Orlando 3-2. So they're finally scoring goals, but they got beat by New York Red Bulls at home. So their league's a bit sporadic, but they're beating teams below them, so that's probably good. That's hence why I went for like a 2-0 win. I think Chicago Fire now basically know season's over and done with, and Columbus Crew now are trying to see if they can nick that final point to get into the playoffs, and I was wondering if they could get it. Where did I put them? Anyway, I'd leave. Anyway, so 2-0 to them. The next one is Cincinnati against Atlanta. Now Cincinnati, who are bottom of the league and preferably will be staying there, obviously, because the nearest team to them is Toronto, and they're 28 points away. So I don't think they can get out of it. Anyway, they're going to get relegated regardless. They're coming up against Atlanta team, who are 9th overall. They're actually not too bad. The last game they played was against New York Red Bulls. That was a 0-0. Then and 1-1 against Toronto. Beat Inter at home. Drew with New York City, 1-1, and then away from home beat Toronto. So now they're coming up against the Cincinnati team, who you would suspect them to beat, to be fair. So I predicted 2-1. Sorry, Cincinnati. I think you may do my black horses for next year, even though that you were. Never mind. So yeah, I'm gonna go for like a 2-1 win to Atlanta. Again, Joseph Martinez is probably up against that defense. He's probably going to have a field day. There probably will be a lot more goals in this game. I do think Cincinnati can get a goal, and they are at home, and I think their fans are probably going to push them on to get that good result. But I think Atlanta, in the end of the day, are a better team. So 2-1 to that one. The next one is Nashville against New York Red Bull, which I think I do need now just to perk myself up again, because it's pretty, I was going to say early in the morning, but it's not really. So anyway, Nashville, the team who haven't lost a game at home, which is quite impressive. They're taking on a team who have starting to do better away from home, which is quite surprising. I think their press kind of helps out. Their last away game was a defeat against DC United, which wasn't not too bad, but they beat Columbus Crew 2-1 before that, and the last game was against Atlanta 0-0 and a 1-0 win against Montreal. So they're coming up against a Nashville team who have only won the one game in the last six. That was a 6-2, 6-3 win against Cincinnati. So that's not a bad result, but at home, the last home game was against Columbus Crew, so that was quite a bit ago. So I'll stick with. Will I go for a draw? I'll go for like a 1-0 win to Nashville. I know Red Bull have probably a better record now coming into this away from home, whereas Nashville probably, in compare, don't. But I do think Nashville at home probably can get a good result out of this one. Nashville are not really a team who I'm not going to say they're more defensive, but I think they don't really suffer to a high press, whereas Red Bull kind of probably will try to have more of the ball, not really know what they're going to do with the ball, and Nashville are just basically going to play into Nashville's hands. The next one is the champions, Revolution, against Inter Miami, who started playing quite well coming into this final bit of the season. Do I think they're going to make it into the playoffs? It's pretty difficult that they will. Again, they haven't won anything in the last 4 away from home, whereas New England haven't lost, but they drew 2, obviously, 1-2. I don't see anything else than a win for New England, to be fair. They're going to top the season with 76 points, which is pretty impressive. All things, I think it's the highest, even though there's been more games played. But regardless, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to New England. Congratulations to them on winning their first Supporter Shield. I always say Supporter Shield does show you the best team in the league, even though now it's kind of a bit not great because they don't really play much the other side, so it's pretty hard, but still the best in the league. So 2-0. The next one is New York City against Philadelphia. Now this one was actually a bit of a tricky one. New York City, are actually not too bad at home, whereas Philadelphia are awful away from home this season. New York won 10 games, drew 3 and lost 3, whereas Philadelphia won 3, drew 8 and lost 5. And the last 4, they've only won the one game, Philadelphia away from home, and New York won the last 2 at home. So New York City FC are actually doing quite well. They beat DC United 6-0, beat Chicago 1-0, and beat Inter Miami away from home 3-1. So not too bad. It's going to be an interesting one. I think Philadelphia may struggle in this one. I know their away record isn't great. So I kind of went for a 2-1 win to New York City. I just think just for the fact that Philadelphia are very inconsistent away from home, is probably going to play into this, as well as New York City's cramped pitch. So basically, I'm going to go for like a 2-1 and win in that one. The next one is Toronto against DC United. Now, this was actually going to be an interesting one. Toronto, who are second from bottom, starting to pick up points in their last couple of games. Their last 2 home games is against Philadelphia. It was a draw 2-2, and then they drew with Montreal 1-1. So they're starting to probably get a couple of good results coming into this one. They're playing against the DC United team who haven't won anything in the last 4 away from home. Their away record is not great. I know Toronto's home record isn't great either, but I think a lot of their games at the start of the season were down in Miami, and kind of Florida kind of thing. So I kind of think that kind of messed them up at the start of the season. So I think it was pretty bleak for them. I don't know. I'll go for like a 1-1. I think just for the fact is Toronto are now at home. I think they're just going to try and make a good run of it. I don't think they're at that peak where they can probably win this game, whereas DC United will probably nick a goal and just end 1-1. So that's my prediction on that one. The next one is Colorado Rapids against LAFC. Now this was an interesting one, just for the fact is because Colorado Rapids are 1 point behind Seattle, who play later on. Well, they play at the same time, but you know what I mean. Who I will predict later on. So yeah, Colorado against LAFC. Colorado are actually doing quite well. They won their last game away from home, and that was a 1-0 win, and then they lost against New England, but they beat Portland and they drew with Seattle, the last games at home. So they're doing not too bad. Los Angeles FC haven't really lost a game in the last 6, which was pretty impressive. They drew 3 and won 3, so they haven't really. They beat Seattle, which is a pretty good result, but Seattle are very weird at the moment. So coming into this one, I'll go for like a 2-1 win to Colorado. I just think they're the better team. I think Los Angeles FC are probably just going to write this one off. I don't know if they can probably make it into the playoffs. I think they're just probably going to miss out in this one, so I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win in that one to Colorado. The next one is Galaxy against Minnesota. Minnesota now are away from home are doing okay. Their away record is 1-3, drew 6 and lost 7, whereas LA Galaxy's won 8 and drew 4 and lost 4. Lost 4. An interesting one. I can't really say much because I haven't really watched much of LA Galaxy nor Minnesota. I know the two teams are probably going to be kind of well matched for each other, so I'm going to go for like a 1-1 draw. LA Galaxy they started off the season quite well and then they kind of dropped, whereas Minnesota are actually doing quite well in comparison. Minnesota are just basically 2 places above them. So yeah, 2 points ahead of them as well. Points, sorry. So I'm going to go for like a 1-1 draw on that one. The next one is Portland Timbers against Austin FC. There's a lot of games, and I don't know why I'm coughing. Stop COVID. Anyway, Austin haven't won a game in the last 4 away from home, whereas Portland have only lost a 1 in the last 4 at home. And I think I know who that was a messed up game too. They should have really won that game, and that was against Vancouver. They lost 3-2. Stupid buggers. But they're coming up against an Austin team who you would suspect them to quite beat. I went for like a 2-1 win. Sorry, Austin. But maybe next season you've done better than Cincinnati, so that's and you've done better than Toronto and Houston. They got rid of their managers. And DC Dallas got rid of their manager too, I think. So I'll go for like a 2-1 win. Portland Timbers at home. Probably just going to have this one wrapped up. They're in the playoffs, I believe, already, so congratulations, Portland. The next one is Sporting Kansas City against FC Dallas. Now, this one was a strange one. LA Galaxy, Earthquakes beat Real Salt Lake away from home 4-3, which was very surprising to me because I think I predicted Real Salt Lake to win that one. But I don't think many people really suspected Real Salt Lake to be getting beat at home 4-3 by San Jose Earthquakes. Now, that was a strange one. Now, FC Dallas, on the other hand, who won their last game, that was against Austin 2-1. But again, Austin are not great. So I'll go for like a 2-0 win, 2-0 to San Jose Earthquakes at home. They're just probably going to put on a show for their fans. I think FC Dallas now are basically new and basically out of it. And I think they probably put a lot of effort into beating Austin. So I think they're going to be just not up for it. So 2-0 win in that one. Sporting Kansas City against Real Salt Lake, who Real Salt Lake obviously got beat the last time, but they're coming up against the Sporting Kansas City team who lost their last 2 away games, and that was against Minnesota and Austin. But they won their last home game, and that was against LA Galaxy. It is an interesting one. I'll go for like a 2-2 draw. Can't really see I don't know why you went for a 2-2. I think Sporting Kansas City at home, they're probably the better team, but I think Real Salt Lake's trying to get into the playoffs. I don't think they will. I think they're still going to try and get that result and have a good game at it, and which will probably Sporting Kansas City are going to be a bit relaxed, and I think they will play their game. They are the better team, but I think Real Salt Lake are going to really do their best to get this draw over the line. I'll get a good result, So I'm going for a 2-2. And the last one is Vancouver against Seattle. Now, Seattle in the last 6 have only won the 1 game, and that was against Vancouver 4-1. But then they got their last away game was against LAFC, and they lost 3-0, and then they got beat by Houston, Colorado, and drew against Colorado, which isn't great. And they're coming up against a Vancouver team who surprisingly are doing quite well. As I said, they've only lost 1 in the last 6, and that was against Seattle. So it is the last game, and I'm going to go for a weird prediction here. I'm going to go for like a 1-1. I'm going to go 1. Vancouver are doing a bit better. They're in a better shape. They're in a better form at the moment, where Seattle are not, which is quite contrasting. Seattle are top and have only won the 1 in the last 6, whereas Vancouver are 11th and have only lost the 1 in the last 6, and that was against the team Seattle. So 1-1 on that one. So those were my predictions, and if you want to check it out, these are this is going to be the table basically. And yep, Colorado Rapids probably going to overtake Seattle. Surprising. Quite a few different ones. I think Red Bull should probably make it into the playoffs over Orlando and Columbus Crew, unfortunately. Whereas Minnesota should probably make it in over LA Galaxy and Real Salt Lake. And the rest is probably explanatory. I think Atlanta being in was a bit of a surprise compared to the start of the season. They didn't start off too well. New York Red Bull, perhaps. Probably the rest in the Eastern's probably a bit normal. And then obviously Vancouver probably getting into will be a bit of a surprise. But, those were my predictions. Let me know what you think and what you think will happen in the last couple of games here. And I would like to know in the comments below. And I hope to see you for the playoffs. Toodaloo.